Minister, my question is I wanted to find out Zimbabwe has made an application to be readmitted into the Commonwealth, and there were conditions that were set, and the government says it has done a bit of it. For example, the Global Compensation Fund, where they are compensating former white commercial farmers, and some movement in the media reforms. How how much does it take for the country to be readmitted into the Commonwealth? Do you think they've done enough? And is the UK government impressed by the space, by the pace at which these reforms are being done?
Well, let me make it clear from the beginning. I very much welcome Zimbabwe's application to rejoin the Commonwealth. I was very sad when it left. But I think it's really important to understand that there is a process. It's not a decision for one country, it's a decision for the Commonwealth itself. And I think actually what I'm very hopeful of is that the independent assessment as part of that process will continue. But it is obviously up to Zimbabwe to continue its application or to reapply. But let me make it clear, I very much welcome its application. And I do think that the progress that we talked about, that I talked about with His Excellency the President this morning, particularly on the arrears dialogue with the 3 pillars, are absolutely a strong commitment to ensure that we can develop that partnership for the future, which is why I committed to visit today. I believe the conditions for a strong partnership focused on economic growth is what will deliver for both the people of Zimbabwe and the people of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, Minister, this is a very historic moment at the moment that you have come to Zimbabwe for a long time. We haven't had a minister coming to Zimbabwe. The issues of human rights, the human rights, the situation in Zimbabwe. Are you not worried about that as a UK?
Well, I think we're living in a geopolitical world where many of the rights that we have taken for granted are being seen to be rolled back, particularly on health and other issues, particularly on women's rights, which I've been very focused on. And I think one of the exchanges I had with His Excellency this morning, which is about the role of civil society. I'm a lifelong trade unionist. I've been part of civil society all my life. I think one of the most important ingredients of a healthy democracy is a vibrant civil society. So I have raised with the government my concerns over the legislation that's been introduced. But those concerns, I still come away when I met with civil society and other businesses. The main focus is what economic growth can be a strong enabler for change. Economic growth can help empower women, especially if they're part of the labour market. So I'm extremely optimistic about the future relationships with Zimbabwe. We have a very strong dialogue. We won't hesitate from expressing concerns, but we're absolutely determined that we change things and we win greater rights through that economic growth. The most important thing we need to focus on is jobs for the future generation. That applies in the United Kingdom as well as in Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much. I'm Batabile Kamini, on his site. Thank you, Honourable Minister, for this opportunity. Maybe to build up on his question, I just want to find out if the UK will continue to support democratic reform and civil society organizations ahead of the possible future elections.
No, well, I mean, the democratic processes for Zimbabwe are for Zimbabweans. I'm very clear about that. I'm also very clear that actually what we want to create the conditions for the sort of inward investment that the United Kingdom wants to deliver on to ensure that we have that economic growth that I talked about. And I think the future requires us to, I mean, businesses that I've met today are absolutely focused on how they can have consistency and continuity. And actually, that's about the rule of law. And the rule of law is a prerequisite of that development and inward investment. And I think those aspirations of that joint mission for economic growth were shared by His Excellency the President today. He also reflected on the importance of civil society. And I did raise the concerns with the Minister. But I do think, I am here because I think that shared goal, working through a partnership based on equality and respect, can deliver the change we all want. And the change we want is a strong economy and a future for our younger generations.
Right, Minister, my name is Stanley. I'm with Fraser Family Force. How would you characterize the current state of the UK-Zimbabwe relations?
Well, I think it's a very positive one. I think it's a positive one where we're looking towards not just building on. I talked in my speech this afternoon about those close family ties, in London and in many parts of the United Kingdom, there's a strong Zimbabwean diaspora. There's also a very strong diaspora, a British presence here. So we share many things in common. Of course, I mentioned in my speech that I did raise with the President a very delicate subject, which I was very hesitant to do, but I thought it was important to explain to him why I was Lord Collins of Highbury, which was because I'm a very strong supporter. Highbury is the home of the best football team in the Premiership. His Excellency the President, I knew that what his reaction would be, had to confess to me that he was a Chelsea supporter. But I did point out that my brother and sister were Chelsea supporters. But he appreciated the fact we have those differences, but we're united in that support for the British Premiership. And by the way, I think football is another great connection our two countries have.
Thank you.
Role in promoting that. But in the current climate, we will see some of the funding for the British Council reduce. But that doesn't mean that we don't focus on how we can develop those cultural ties and to actually develop and promote the music and the art of the continent. And I've been very pleased. I was at the Africa Centre in London not so many weeks ago to launch a cultural event with Kenya. But that Africa Centre is also promoting big communications with music. I was also in Lagos, where I talked to people who were absolutely focused on new music going into the United Kingdom. And also the technology and the great entrepreneurship. Music and culture is a big industry and a big money earner. So we're absolutely committed to see how we can expand that, particularly with Zimbabwe. The cricket game showed you how people coming together, celebrating something. But the songs that were sang at that game were brilliant. So I want to see more of that.
From So given the UK's long-term commitment to human rights globally, what specific measures or forms of support can Zimbabwe expect from the British government to address ongoing concerns around freedom of expression, political tolerance, and the protection of civil liberties? And also maybe from your meeting with His Excellency in the morning, you can maybe address some of these issues, and what was his response?
Well, I think one of the key elements that he responded to was about that society isn't just about government and politicians. I've spent a lifetime in civil society. I've promoted the rights of women and the rights of other groups through my activity as a trade unionist. And I think that activity I actually think, don't simply focus on what politicians do or don't do. Actually empower people. I think women can come through in our society through economic independence, how we can actually deliver jobs for women. I've seen evidence of that. So I think human rights are very important, but I don't see them in isolation. I don't see them as a separate column of things that we should focus on. I see our partnership of economic growth being a very strong enabler of the rights that we're all concerned about. And I think His Excellency the Presidency, who is determined to deliver that economic growth, fully understands that too. And that's why it's so important to have the rule of law, because businesses need that approach. Businesses need that consistency to invest. And what this country needs, it's got the potential. What it needs is the investment. And the United Kingdom's absolutely determined to work in partnership with Zimbabwe.
Last question.
One more?
One more. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.